Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own Money Truth expert and whisperer, Judy Copenbarger. How are you?
I am fantastic. Happy Tuesday morning to you. And how are you, Carlos?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, Tuesday is my favorite day of the week, right? Especially when we start off this early with some great wisdom. We get our workouts done first, and then we just get to talk about life and how to make it better for not only us, but for our families and the business community.
And that's what it's all about. I love it. It's all about family. It's about future. It's about all those things in our lives that are more important than money, but it takes money to make it go. So I'm so glad we're all here.
Yeah, folks, and thank you for joining us. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome to the show. Make sure that you are following Judy at judycopenbarger.today. There's a lot of great content and a lot of freebies on our website that also will help you guys through the journey of financial. What are we going to call this? Financial journey, financial chaos. What do you think is a good word?
It's a little bit of all of that. Yeah.
All
I
of
think
that,
it's
right?
just getting from where you are to where you want to be financially, whatever that is. Maybe it's a roadmap. Maybe it's a journey. Maybe it means success or freedom to you. There's so many things it means to so many people when it comes to, money as a tool.
Yeah, and if you're joining us for the very first time, and those that are currently watching, I want to encourage you to go back to last week's episode because today's episode is actually a bonus episode. We talked about kids and money, and today we're going to talk about, basically teaching teens about money, the habits that can last them a lifetime. So that's what we talked about last week as well too. So we want to make sure that you take a look at last week's show. And today we are, as a matter of fact, I'm sorry, that was last week's show. This week, our bonus episode is raising financially smart kids, our teens and our young adults. So what do you say we get started? Because I know we ran out of time last time. So I want to jump on this as soon as possible.
Yeah, it takes a lot to deal with these teenagers, to help our young adults launch well with good habits and good mindsets around money. It takes a little bit of doing. So a lot to talk about.
And truth be told, a lot of us adults actually are kind of in that same boat, right? That's the reality.
It's sadly, I run across people that have never learned some of the basic concepts. And really, there are only half a dozen concepts in money management that if you master those, or at least avoid the stupid mistakes, you will not mess up. I mean, you'll be able to get where you want to go. And there's only a few. And so if we can help our teenagers and our young adults figure that stuff out early when they first start getting their hands on money, they can make small mistakes instead of adult-sized mistakes later, which a lot of us recovered from, right? So let's do it. There's a lot to talk about. Let's get into it.
So let's start with the obvious question. Why is financial education something that should start at every age?
Oh, I think it should start early from toddlers, right? From the time they can stack the shoes and help sweep the floor and, unload the dishwasher and set the table and do things like that, they should be earning and managing their own money. It doesn't work for me if you've got, money from grandma for Easter or birthday gifts and, there's cash that comes in throughout the year for graduation, whatever it is. So money comes in and you stick it in the bank and you say, honey, you've got money from grandma. Well, that doesn't help them learn about money. Most adults and most people that struggle later in life don't say it's an earning problem. It's a spending problem. They don't know how to allocate the money going out properly, right? And it's not even an investment thing. It's money management. For most people, it's cash flow. So if we can get handles on that, as soon as we start having income coming in, and it could be 4, 5, 6 years of age, right? Definitely by the time kids are working, a lot of kids will get a summer job or work, while they're in school. We started at 14, my husband and I. We've always just kind of supported ourselves. But as the kids go, maybe our kids went through college without having to work, but they all chose to work. And there was so many opportunities just on campus. They're always looking for guinea pigs for tests and kids to take notes for other kids that are disabled somehow. That was really good money, actually. Well, a couple of our daughters did that in school. And it's like, it's right there. Now you're auditing a class. You don't have to get a grade, but you get to learn. And you're taking notes and really making a difference in someone else's life and good cash. So there's so many things that you can do. But the trick is once the money comes in and the kids are starting to earn money, whether they're 4 or 14 or 24, when that money starts to come in, what do they do with it? And that's where we can really help them.
So let's talk about that a little more. Let's deep dive a little bit in how should financial lessons shift from actually, let me take that back. let me ask you, how can we tailor money conversations for kids as little kids, teens, and young adults? Because the conversation is going to be different all the way around. So let's take a little bit of a deep dive on that.
Yeah. Well, there are five little areas of money, dealing with money. There's earning it, spending it, managing, which is growing and protecting, and then there's giving. That's it. Everything you do with money is one of those transactions or one of those line item movements. And so the first thing about earning, how do you earn? Well, do they get an allowance, or do they have earning chores? Do they wait till college and, audit classes and make money that way? Are they working in a family business? Are they starting to work at home, when they're little, which I think is great, because they can chunk money away into their Roth IRA when they're a kid and have all that tax-free growth. So that's another show. But that's earning. And then spending money is what we're going to focus on today. How do you allocate the money as it leaves your household? Do I have fun money? Do I save for retirement? When you're a 10-year-old, that's a hard sell, right?
Right.
Like, when I'm how old? I'm going to save that money for when I'm how old? That's like never, right? Because 30-year-olds.
You mean I can't get my candy bars? You mean you can't, you know what I mean? Go to the arcade?
Yeah. And you're never going to say, no, you can't do that. You always want to have some money for that fun money. Anything, anytime. I mean, you might have rules about sugar in your house or whatever, but pretty much whatever they want to do, you just say hands off. That's the money allocated for that. And then part of it is for, a goal that they might have. You can help them learn that delayed gratification. And we'll do a deep dive on that for sure. But that's the spending part. And then there's managing, growing and protecting it. How do you protect it? Where do you put your cash when you're a kid? Is it in your underwear drawer? Is it under your doll's dress? Do you actually go and have a bank account? Yes, I think you should. If you have $100, you should have a bank account. Then you get a statement, has your name on it, maybe with mom and dad's too, but it has your name on it. That's your money. You manage that. So that's the growing and the protecting part. And then giving, I think, from the start, it's very important to be charitable. It's a big deal in our house. And I think it leaves you in this mindset of abundance. If you always, help the neighbors, help the teams, help your church, if you're always giving and helping other people, you'll always have enough. If you have a scarcity mindset where I have to hoard the money, I might not have enough, I'll run out. And my mom's from that generation where they did have lack, right? She's from that generation, born in 29. She lived through that depression and that, we have to recycle and we can't throw anything away. So there's still people around that have that mindset, or they learned it from folks who were there. So our role, I think, as parents, as mentors, as coaches, as helpers of the young next generation, is to help them learn how to do all this stuff, how to earn, how to spend, how to save, how to manage. And if they learn how to control their spending and manage their spending, have a spending plan, at least a rough outline or a template, it will really save so many problems for them as they grow into more income in the future.
And that's a great point. It's actually leads me into my next question. That is, you've talked a little bit about this, but I don't think people realize what or I should say parents don't realize what are the long-term benefits of building these money habits very early in life. You give an example of the adults are just, we didn't know any better,
Absolutely. Avoiding the mistakes, because the mistakes, adult-sized mistakes, can set you back months, maybe years. They impact your credit. They impact your mentality. They impact your relationships. Everything impacts everything. And if your money isn't working, that might impact your health. It might impact your everything, your relationships, where you live, how you live, your attitude when you wake up every day, your conversations around money. Are they full of anxiety, or are they full of joy and planning and hope and dreams, right? So all of that comes down to whether you have these basic tools in place or not. It doesn't mean we're not going to have bottleneck periods of time where we're short of money, usually transitions in life. We have a health issue, we move, we have triplets, things happen. You lose your job, that the genre that you work in changes, and now the jobs aren't there. You're training for a new one. Maybe you go back to school, or maybe your spouse goes back to school and it's like the income was here and now it's here. So all those transitions can happen. It doesn't mean you're not going to have tough times or skinny times. I like to say there's skinny times, but those will happen. But it doesn't mean you have to always live in not enough, always trying to catch up, always kind of treading water with, weights on your ankles. Some people live like that financially, and it's so sad. It doesn't have to be that way. It's the choices we make every day, the decisions that we make about finances every day that determine the outcome. And it's very doable if you follow just a few principles and avoid stupid mistakes.
Yeah, that's it.
It's kind
Folks,
of
thank you
simple.
for joining us. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Thank you for joining us this morning. Make sure you watch the beginning of the show and watch last week's episode because we are talking about our teens, our kids, right? Everything from the littles all the way to those that have graduated high school this year and moving on to college. So you need to make sure that you watch the episode and take some good notes as well too. And if you're not following Judy, do so at judycopenbarger.today. So we talk about kids. I want to take it a step further and kind of break it down by age groups, right? So when we're talking about kids in the age group between 5 and 10, what are maybe some creative ways you can share to teach kids the value of money?
Well, when they earn money or they get money for a birthday, it's gifted to them or whatever. And I think they should be earning by third grade, definitely. That's their money, the pride of ownership and the pride of contributing something. I gave value and then I received money. That's how it is when we're adults. Money doesn't just show up like manna from heaven. Like allowance, there are arguments for and against allowance, but just because it's Friday, I don't get paid. Right? As a kid, I didn't get an allowance. As an adult, I certainly don't get an allowance, right? I got to do something until Friday for money to show up. I got to perform, right? And so I think that's an important principle to keep in mind. Not that allowance can't be helpful. And if you are doing allowance, like $1 per week per kid based on their age, right? So a 5-year-old would get $5 a week. A 16-year-old would get $16 a week, something like that. On their birthday, they get a raise, right? So that's just rule of thumb if you are going to do an allowance. But what worked really well for me and what I've taught over the years is just the encouragement of earning chores where you have to perform or do something to get the money. You make your bed. I mean, well, that's kind of like you live here, so your bed needs to get made. But extra things we do, little yard work, or we wash the car, or we do something, help a neighbor or something like that. You're going to earn the money. I think by contract, a couple of lawyers, right? By contract, it's helpful because you set the expectations. Here are 5 chores you can do. Each chore is worth $5. If you do them, that's great. You'll earn $5, maybe $25 if you do them all perfectly, right? Completely and finish on time, right? Whatever our agreement is. Or you could do 2 of the 5 and now you've earned $10. Or you could do 3 of the 5 and earn $15 and kind of give them the power. We want to empower kids, not just mandate to them, right? Because we want them to make good decisions later. So you can just say, here's the list of things that you could do. You can earn some or not. And you might have a kid that's like, no, I'm not doing it. Or you might have another one that says, well, let's make the list longer. I've got a lot of energy. I can get this done. And I'm motivated by money, right? And they're all different. And there will be different seasons where they have different motivations around money. But that's one thing that you can do for earning chores. So once they earn the money, the big trick is how do they allocate the spending? And a good rule of thumb for their spending is 50, 30, 20. You'll read all over the internet if you look up, what should teens do with their money? 50% goes to whatever they want to spend right now. And this is before college age, by the way. This is kids. 50% is whatever they want. Fun money. They go spend it on, a pair of shoes, or they can go out to pizza, or they can buy that toy, at the toy store they've been eyeing for a while, save up for that. 50% of what they earn goes there. 30% goes toward something that they really, really, really want, a goal, set a goal for the future. And then 20% should be savings. And if they already have a credit card with debt, they pay that off, which I think by high school is a good thing. If they learn to have a credit card, establish credit, and pay, $20 a month or $10 a month on that credit. So 50, 30, 20. Now out in the world of the internet, it's going to be 50% needs, 30% wants, 20% debt. Well, what needs do you have when you're 10? Right? Unless you're making them buy their own clothes, but probably not. So there's not really needs, wants, and wishes, or needs, wants, and debt service when they're still kids and at home. And you mentioned, 5 to 10. But you can do 50% for now, 30% for soon, and 20% for later. And that works for me long term.
That's great. And it's actually it covers basically kids between 5 and 10, and actually moving on to the middle schoolers and teens. So I'm glad that you encapsulated all of that for the youngsters. What I call, and talking about high schoolers, talking about colleges, those that graduated, right? They're off into some of them are off into the military, some of them are off into careers, some of them are going to college to increase their knowledge. But in that sense, what are key conversations to have with these college students? There's new college students, these young adults that are just starting their career.
Yeah, I think the conversation needs to be about the future. Because when you're that age, it's like you live for today. You're very present, and you might be able to think past Thursday, maybe to where I'm going to have pizza on Friday, where are my friends going to be Friday night, right? You might be able to get past the week, but it's hard to plan for a month from now or even all the way to graduation. Seems so far away when you're a kid, right? Or college, what's that like? That's the old people do stuff like that. So you got to kind of get into the mindset. And if you remember when at our age, when we were at that age, it was like forever. Summer was forever away. Next year, I can't even think about next year or the end of this year, right? So it's getting them to understand that there's time that will happen after their horizon. They can see the short horizon generally, and there's time after that. If you talk to a kid about going to college or doing military and then ROTC, things like that, they're like, are you kidding me? 8 years of my life? I'm going to be old. And we look back and go, that went like that. The first 12 years of college went like that for us, right? I mean, it really does go fast when you're looking back, but when you're looking forward, it's a long time. So if we can help them just say, trust me, the horizon will modify, as you get a little older and as you grow into adulthood, it will change. So always have money for the future. You don't even have to know what it's for. Just always put some away for the future. Maybe it's your car, maybe it's your first apartment, maybe it's retirement, whatever that is out there, right? And maybe it's starting a family, your emergency fund. Something out there will happen at some point. And if every time you earn money, a little bit goes to you in your future self will thank you for having done that. Whether it's 5%, 20% is great. If people can maintain at 20%, a little harder on the coast where housing is higher. When you actually have real expenses, it's like, ooh, but if that's a goal for you to get to that 15, 20% mark, and you just always do that, those are the people that retire in their 50s or at 50. They're the ones coaching soccer because they don't have to be at work. They're the ones that are joining the Cruise of the Month Club, or they're at the country club golfing on Tuesday afternoon. So those are the people that saved a little bit along the way. Not all of them are trust babies or sold a IT company, right? A lot of them saved a little bit along the way. It's the millionaire next door kind of story, right? And doing those things and getting those habits early is something we can help our kids with. Grandkids, young people in your life, help them get this down. 50, 30, 20 will help them.
See, like I said before, time flies when you're having fun, right? And folks, if you're just joining us, watch the beginning of the show, but it's time for us to see the end of the show. I can't wait for these youngsters to have a challenge that parents can actually give them to implement. So what do you have for us today?
I think that's going to be our challenge. So anyone who is not in that young adult or that teenage area of life right now, people who are. So my challenge for you is to help them sit down with pencil and paper, pencil out 50, 30, 20. It might be just starting with, earning, spending, managing, which is growing and protecting and giving money. What are your goals around that? How much money do you want to give away? Are you charitable or not yet? Are you just thinking about your career or your next move in college right now? What is that? What are your goals around that? And then when it comes to managing, what does that look like for you? Do you want to save a lot? Or do you want to just spend it all right now? And you can get that young person under your wings and just say, okay, if you're a spender, let's work on saving a little bit, just a little. And if you're a saver, let's work on spending a little, just a little. And if it's not for you, make it for someone else. So maybe you don't really feel like you need stuff or deserve stuff or want to spend money on you, but spend it on someone. Become that, charitable and develop that. Doing that, pencil and paper with a young person in your life, I think will go a long way toward making a difference for them, but it'll also reinforce in you the things that work. And every time, iron sharpens iron, we sharpen ourselves, we get a little bit better. Teaching is the best way to hone our own skills. That's your challenge. Are you muted? I think you're muted.
I think I was muted. Yeah. So parents, if you're watching this, take the challenge. Make sure if you have any additional questions, please let us know. And also there's other topics that you may think of that you like Judy to address, especially with our teens, especially with the youngsters growing up and all that. We'd love to hear from you on that. And remember, we're here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. with the replays on Thursdays at 8 p.m. And if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. Judy, any last parting words?
I think it's just going to be a great week. But if you'd like a resource, I've got the book Teen Cash. It's perfect and was written by our family for kids, written by kids for kids. Age 8 to 18 is exactly what you need. So reach out. If you'd like a copy, we'll get it to you.
All right. Awesome, folks. Until next week, take care.